I don't know if anybody's here, but we're going to make a waiting graphic. Someone told me that if you ever need to pause your live stream, you can make a quick little clever waiting graphic and switch to it in OBS, which is this software that I use for broadcasting, while you go do whatever thing that is that you're doing. So let's go do that thing. Please go away, Doc. Wow. Please go away, Doc. Please go away, Doc. There we go. All right, so let's just say be right back. Let's just do this little doohickey. And let me pop out a chat. I'll keep the chat on my secondary monitor for now, and then I'll bring it onto the thing in a minute. OMG, no Starbucks. You haven't had your Starbucks this morning. So what I want for this is something like the old school intermission things that you would get, like this kind of thing. Something like that. But I wanted a simpler one. Yes, this is what I want right here. Of course, that's janky as all get out, but can we be inspired by this to do something? Okay, just real quick, let's just do this. See if we got a nice doodly diddly font, and then later I'll make it fancier. That's a nice doodly diddly font. Please stand by. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. We'll use that one for now. All right, that's going to be it for now. We'll do another one. I'll do a fancier one later. So I'm saving that to please stand by twitch.jpg, and then an OBS, which I'll bring over so y'all can see it. I'm going to hit a, gosh darn it, I hate that doc. Go away. Okay. I'm going to create a pause scene that has an image. Create new image. And then assume I can upload. Please stand by.twitch. Bam. And then, of course, it's the wrong size. Let's keep it perfect. And so now anytime I want to switch to that, I can just be on the pause screen. Please stand by. All right, let's switch back to Office. So hopefully that worked for all of y'all, and now we can get to the coding. All right. Let's bring our chat back up. Higher quality. I'll grab a higher quality one later. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell. All right, bring it in so you guys are running it there. All right, so here is the task of the day. I recently realized, I also recently realized that this is cropping. Let's fix that. There we go. And then shrink that down a little bit. So I worked a little bit last week on something that is using the Marvel API to allow me to subscribe to a given series on Marvel Unlimited. And basically the goal is to set it up so that I can mark a particular Marvel comic. So for example, I've been using Ms. Marvel as my example. So Ms. Marvel has probably 6 comics out that are out in print but that are not out on Marvel Unlimited. If you're not familiar, Marvel Unlimited is a little bit like Netflix or something like that. Things come to it later. So what I'd like is for all those comics that I'm following to be able to get a notification for when a new comic comes out in that series, comes out on Marvel Unlimited. As far as I know, no such thing exists. So we spent last week starting that. I spent a couple hours this weekend refactoring the thing, only to finally run into a problem, which is that my whole context here, let's find where, let's see, where's the place to start? Oh yeah, one thing worth noting, anybody who tuned in last week, it ends up basically being there's so many comics, or so many series, there's like 8,900 series that just caching the API result was not a viable option. So I ended up having to pull all of them into the local database. So then the next step is every day to run a check, which is probably in here, that says, what's going on? Okay, job. Find me all series that were updated in the last day. So that's all, a series is something like Ms. Marvel or Spider-Man or whatever. Find me all series that were updated in the last day and figure out if anybody's actually subscribed to that in our app, because if not, we can just discard it. Then for each of those series, find all of their unlimited comics. So it's not comics that were printed, it's all the ones that are on Marvel Unlimited. And if it's new on Unlimited in the last day, hey, thank you. Then notify all the people who are subscribed to that. So it's this nice, clean collection pipeline type thing. Everything's good. And then I realized something terrible, which is a series on Marvel's API does not get marked as modified when a new comic comes out. So this whole thing falls apart. Total failure. And unfortunately, their documentation is very limited. It's basically Swagger. So if you're unfamiliar with that, gosh darn it, this doc, I want it to go away forever. All right, the Swagger docs for Marvel look like this. So it's really cool because you can explore the portal and everything. Very nice. You can try out the API. This is really cool. You can see the results. The problem is there's no actual documentation anywhere. At no point does something say, here's what actually makes us decide to mark something's modified. That doesn't exist. And as such, there was no way until I actually started hitting real data to figure out that this whole thing is a failure. So that's where I stopped. My original next step plan had been to go back and acceptance TDD drive out the whole thing from scratch to show folks what acceptance TDD looks like. I love it. It's brilliant. It's my favorite way of writing stuff. The problem is, and I said this last week, you have to have a little bit of a concept of what it's like working with your kind of like end API or your data store or whatever before you can acceptance TDD it, because you need to know a little bit about the structure. And the problem is I know so little, I can't even ATDD something because I don't know what the actual final result needs to look like. I don't even know what acceptance looks like at this point. So right now I'm doing something called spiking, where I'm just throwing things together, trying to build them. I did do a little bit more refactoring than you normally do in spiking, but it was because I needed it to work well enough to be able to see if it's actually working. And as we see, we've gotten this far. I mean, there's a lot of work in here. There's a lot of pretty decent code. It took this long to finally figure out it wasn't working. So, and ATDD wouldn't help me with that. So, because this is all about the API, learning the API basically because there's no good documentation for it. So, next step, I think rather than going back and doing ATDD, it's probably going to be trying to figure out how to re-architect the thing so that we can hit the API in a way that gives us a meaningful result. And so the thing is, we can't scope it based on recently modified series. So there's two changes I can think of in response to that that might be valuable. And in case you're wondering, I'm now not just explaining things to you, I'm now actually just trying to figure out as I go. I think the two options I can think of are, one, to pull all series that we're subscribed to every day. And I'm worried that that is going to get slower and 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 slower as we go, and the whole thing's going to fall apart. So the interesting thing is, every time I pull a series, if you look at this code, every time I pull a series, the next thing that I do, hold on, let me find this. The next thing I do after that is look up all the unlimited comics in that series. So in the end, if I have the information about the series, I can just kind of like drop this concept entirely, and we could start from, for all the series that we have in our system, look up all their unlimited comics. Now the problem is that means we're no longer looking up just unlimited comics for the series that have been updated. We're now just going to say, just give me all the unlimited comics for every single series that's in our entire database, which definitely makes me nervous. But I don't really know if there's any other way to do it. List comics by creation date backwards, then get the series from that. Interesting. So it'd be all comics. So the problem is it's not the creation date that we need. It's the date that it went live on Marvel Unlimited. But let's see. If we could say, give me all comics that went live on Marvel Unlimited within the last day, that would be brilliant. And then we could just filter those by the subscriptions that we have. Good thinking. I don't think that exists, but I have not actually looked at it. Okay. Modified since. So if a comic is marked as modified when its unlimited edition goes live, then that would be good. Okay, so let's find that. Order by FOC date, I don't know what that is. On sale date makes sense, title, issue number, modified. Okay, so if the comic modified date gets set when it goes unlimited, then that would be it. And it seems like it should. So let's find one that I know has gone live on unlimited within the last week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Unlimited app, and I think there's a thing somewhere in here that says new this week. There we go. All right, Howard the Duck 2015 number 6. So let's find the comic for Howard the Duck 2015. So title starts with Howard, and I think that's just going to be enough for now. So let's see what we get in results when, and drop that series, because that's the series from Ms. Marvel. That would be brilliant. That would be, because what we need, if it's not clear yet, what we need is to scope things. All right, Howard the Duck, there's a lot of them, okay. So let's see if we can get a modified since. So that came out this week. I don't know when this week gets treated at, so let's just do 2016-10-01 for now, and then kind of we'll scope it up from there. Howard the Duck 2015 number 11, and this one's number 6. So we're getting a modified date on that one, that means it probably went to print within the last week. But let's see if we get number 6, which is the one that went to digital this last week. We don't. Okay, so what I'm looking at right now is on Marvel Unlimited. Matt, if you have an app already that has tabs for at least the general data you want, use Charles Proxy, sniff the traffic, and see what API endpoints. Yeah, I don't know, unfortunately, but thank you. Okay, let me double check. New this week, 49, Howard the Duck, Howard the Duck 2015, number 6. And then we go to the comics API, and we say, give me all comics, no variants. Title starts with Howard. Yeah, thanks. Unfortunately, it requires you to have an app. So I do have the Marvel Unlimited app here. Well, that's interesting. So if we, so the one thing that we could sniff is from the Marvel Unlimited app. If we could figure out the new this week on Marvel Unlimited, then that would be an API call that would give us something interesting. So there might be a direction to go that way. I've only ever used Charles on the desktop. Is there a way to sniff mobile traffic through it? If so, link me to a direction, an article or something. All right, I'm going to keep looking here. So modified since this was, it's the 17th, so that definitely should be caught on here. That stories, shared appearance, no, collaborators, order by, whatever. Yeah, so in theory, wonderful. Please send me a list or something. Thank you so much. In theory, if the modified date of the Howard the Duck 2015 number 6 comic was set, if the modified date was updated when it went live on Marvel Unlimited, then it should have showed up in this query, and it did not. Okay, so good idea, didn't work. Geez, this is killer. Is there any other things that we can query in here? That would suggest, what about the E tag? You'd think that the E tag, oh, right. So do they have an E tag in here? No, so we'd have to pull all of them and check the E tag on all of them. Yeah. Jeez, okay. So this is comics within a predefined date range, so you could say within the last week. The problem with that is, as far as I understand, everything is predicated around the physical print. Like Unlimited is kind of like a second-class citizen. So everything that doesn't specifically talk about an unlimited thing, the dates are always talking about the print. Okay, let's just step back for a second and think about if we were to do this whole, let's sniff the Marvel Unlimited app and see there's a thing here that says new this week 49, and it is all of the comics that came to Marvel Unlimited within the last week. So there's got to be, now it might be private only. Has digital issue allows you to scope it down, but it's, so like we could definitely do that, but it's still, you'd get every comic ever that has a digital issue. All right, really bad docs. Set up iPhone, use the external proxy. You need to allow Charles to use external. Okay, cool. So this is my backup. I'm not going to do it live because I only have half an hour, but thank you so much. I'll just pull these up in another browser actually. But basically what we're saying here is use Charles proxy, and if anybody's not familiar with Charles, it's a proxy that you can set up on your computer that requires that all web traffic goes through this proxy, and then it has like a little window that basically says this request went from this app to this blah 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 with this blah blah blah, and so you can basically sniff out a computer app to figure out what requests is it making, and you can learn about how to hit their API or anything like that. And so what we're saying here is that you can actually, with a lot of manual hacky work, set up your iPhone to do the same thing, at which point I can then sniff what request is the iPhone making to get this whole new Unlimited this week. Again, I'm not going to do that right now, so let's do a little bit of digging here. If we don't make any progress here in the next couple of minutes, I might switch over to the user interface just because I don't want to, thank you so much. I don't want to spend the whole time digging into API docs and never actually make any progress here. So, okay, so what if we were looking, if I was writing the Marvel Unlimited app, API version cable, that's a comic character, and I wanted to get all comics released on Marvel Unlimited within the last certain amount of time. Is there any API endpoint that I'm not looking at here? It's not stories, it's not events, it's not. I don't think this is going to be it, but let's, no, yeah, that's not going to be it because you have to pass the comic ID already. Story is a sub element of a comic. Yeah, no, there's nothing here. So it seems like our only option would be to say, give me all comics. For each of our subscribed series, give me all comics for that series, and then we can scope it down. Well, yeah, it's in the response, but it's not in the search query. That's the problem. So what we're doing right now is there's this scope. So basically, it gives you all the series that have been updated in the last day, which is no longer working. It checks whether they're subscribed, and then for each of them, it gives all of their unlimited comics, which is basically all the digital comics. And then it filters out only those that are new and unlimited. And comic is new and unlimited is just go through the dates, find the one that the type is unlimited date, and then see if it's since the provided time. Nice. So yeah, so that's it. I know how to get that date from the result. There's a lot of interesting stuff we can get from the result, but by the time we get the result, I don't need it. By the time we get the result, the problem is, imagine 100 people using this app, each of which are subscribed to 50 series. That means every single night this runs, it has to do, let's say they're 50 unique series. That's thousands of queries to say, give me every comic for this series and then run through all of them. And I'm worried about basically running into rate limiting issues. And now we can separate them out by queuing each user individually. So that might be the only way, but I'd much prefer doing as much scoping in the initial call as possible so that we don't end up basically slowing the whole thing down. And basically when you're writing something like this, your API is always going to be your bottleneck. So the better you can scope and customize your API queries, the better off you're going to be. So, okay, so I want to look through this one more time, and if we can't find anything here, then we're just going to give up and move over to the user interface. All right, date descriptor, date range. I do. But it's not like I can download the entire database of all comics every night, right? Like I already end up having to rewrite the thing, so I download all the series that we're subscribed to every night, which is already kind of bulky. But basically, each user only needs to use our database, so there's 8,900 series, and series can have dozens to hundreds of comics, and so trying to and there's the API, the Marvel API is listed to 100. You can't have a page bigger than 100 items. So pulling down just 8,900 series takes forever and starts hitting the rate limit, let alone for all of our subscribed series, then also pull all their comics. So again, it's possible that what I end up doing is saying for each subscribed series, pull down all that data, and then we could cache it in the local database if we need or not. But it doesn't matter because really we only have to do one thing with it right now. When we get that comic data, we have to say, are there new comics that are new on Unlimited in the last day? And then we can throw that data away. You don't really need it. So, because you have to refresh the data every day for it to be useful. It's not like we're listing the comics anywhere or anything like that. So, okay, so modified since did not work. For some crazy reason, adding a new comic does not change the modified since date. Creators, characters, series, events, stories, shared appearances, collaborators, order by, limit offset. What is FOC date? Yep. Laravel, every single time. What the heck does FOC mean? And what's the difference between that and a print issue? Well, thank you. But clearly, if somebody's asking this, final order cutoff. So that's not what we want. Okay, so yeah, it looks like there's nothing, which is really frustrating. Actually, let's look at the comic result real quick. See what they call. I'm pretty sure everything in the comic between when it's not online and when it is online will be exactly the same, except the whole, what is it, digital whatever has digital issue will change to a Boolean, and then where is it? When you go to the not variants dates, you'll have a new date that's called unlimited date or something like that. Yeah, it'd be cool if you could say one where digital, you can scope the digital ID or something like that. But that's not good. But this ended up being the same thing. So give me only results where digital issue is true. So this is going to say give me only comics where there's a digital issue. Oh, let's change the modified date again. Modified since 2016-10-01 has digital issue. The problem is we're going to get none. No results. So yeah, I think what it's going to end up having to be at this point is let's actually do a commit right now. Tons of changes, mail, etc. Then realized series aren't marked modified. Okay, so rework, and the reworking that we're going to do is for each subscribed comic, nope, subscribed series, get all comics, and I'm trying to think about what scoping we could do with the digital issue. Then check if digital issue is new, and if so, notify. So this gets, we're making more and more and more queries the more series we're subscribed to. So that's my concern. But the good thing is every new subscription, only the number of queries only goes up 1. Versus some of the options, other options we looked at, the series could go up by a ton. So it's not awesome, but it's not that bad. And so that probably would end up looking something along the lines of, in pseudocode, this subscribe series. What's this? All right, by type equals date, and get them is digital on, date start. By zone equals Marvin type, format type equals issue. That's from the app. That's the one that they did to figure out what published recently. Howard the Duck number 6. So what? By type equals date is digital equals 1. All right, so let's try and build that. Where's that by type in the first place? Interestingly, I don't even see that anywhere. But thank you so much for looking that up. That could be the thing that we needed. You just went and did it, huh? Thank you. The interesting thing is it's showing results on there. Ultimate Spider-Man Infinite Comic is not actually... Oh, you know what? It's probably getting that result and then sorting it alphabetically afterwards. Let me see if I go down to U. Do I see Ultimate Spider-Man Infinite? It's ending at Deathlock, which is that the end, or is it not actually alphabetical? It's not actually alphabetical. What is going on? But it does have Howard the Duck number 6, so that would definitely suggest that this is the thing we're looking for. Look at this, date added to digital comics. Why is that not coming back? What's interesting? That's a different query. So let's take these exact same query and instead make it on the portal API and see if this may end up being like an entirely different API structure. In which case we might just have to build our own like mini caller, you know what I mean? I think this is not going to work. Well, this won't work because it wants my API key, yeah. But you might have just solved the thing. None right now, I don't think. Oh yeah, and then we have to build a hash and everything like that. But thank you so much. As far as I can tell right now, the only thing I need is that, the new this week kind of thing. What does it look like for us to get new this week? What I'm guessing is if we just pull down new this week and then somehow figure out when the week turns and then trigger our event, our emailing event when the week turns. Yeah, this is a completely different structure than what we've been looking at. So this is definitely like an entirely different API, but who cares? This is great. The URL is in your... I hope not. But yeah, that definitely is a concern. It definitely is one we don't want to hammer. Problem is that the Marvel folks, I've sent them an email like a week ago and still haven't, not a week ago, okay, that's not true. I sent them an email on Saturday and they probably haven't been working on weekends, so I should not complain about it. So, okay. But yeah, it is dangerous to depend on this, but at the same time, this is exactly what we need, so it'd be really cool if they were just cool about it. So, okay, let's do a thing. So let's update our rework to something new. What are we going to say? I guess, yeah, I grabbed that, thanks. So interestingly, this looks similar to the one you just showed. What's the difference between those two URLs? Total 49, total 118. All right, let's figure out what the difference between the two of them is. Which one of these is probably going to be also added this month, which I don't think we want. I think we just want the added this week. So can you tell from when they're getting called? Okay, new this week, 49. Also added this month, 155. So this 49 one looks to be the one we want. What is this 118 one? What is this? What is 118? Yeah, I'm not seeing anything with the list 118, but this is 49. So let's work the 49 one. We're going to work with this. So what we need to do is get this, and let's look at the structure real quick. Data results, date added to digital comics. Great. So just check if that's today. Oh, we can't check if it's today because we're getting 1013. So this is probably going to be, I wonder if this result goes up. 1010, almost all these are 1010. It makes sense because I think they release all of them on like Tuesday or Wednesday. Let me look at what day of the week 1010 was. So Monday? Yeah, it's a Monday. But the weird thing is we can't assume they're all going to be on Monday because we've got this 1013 right here. So does this have like a modified date or an e-tag on it or something like that we can use to check? No. So it feels like every night we pull this data down. Let's see this. Okay, so every night we pull this data down. Night, pull this data down. Check its hash against the previous night's hash. If it's changed, trigger a event to check. So the problem is I don't know if so let's say they only update this feed once a week, then I can't say, well, notify someone if it the release date, the digital release date was today, because maybe it gets updated and it's already 3 days after the digital release date. What I really need to know is what is the schedule on which this thing gets updated, and then set a schedule on that to look for the last. Let's say this thing's updated once a week, which I don't think is going to be true. Then we would need to say, give me notify about any of them have been sent out in the last week. I mean, one option is to for each comic ID, so like you go to results, to actually just say, like have a notified comics store somewhere that says something like, all right, so every night pull this data down, check the hash, if it's changed, trigger an event to notify, and then every time we notify about a comic, save its ID in the notified comics table or whatever, so we never accidentally re-notify. Actually, I think this works okay, because now I'm only going to rerun this if the hash has changed, so I only rerun it whenever they actually update it, and then B, even if something ever happens and I end up basically getting the same feed in there, the same item in there multiple times, I've now checked to make sure. And this is what I did in Jiscus, which is an app I built to notify you about GitHub comments. If you ever basically, like, for some reason, if it gets run twice, we already checked to make sure that we haven't notified you about that thing, so you never get double notifications. So let's take a look at this. All right. For all of these, pull this data down, check its hash against the previous night's hash. So we're only hitting it once. a day. If it's changed, trigger the notify event. The notify event says to notify event equals for each comic, find anyone who's subscribed to the series and notify them if they haven't been notified yet. Every time we notify about a comic, save its ID in the notified comics table. Okay, cool. So that's something along the lines of, well, first let's make sure we have series ID in here. Please tell me we have series ID in here. We don't have series ID. Why? Why do we not have series ID? So we have to look up the actual API, like the legit API version of this. So let's look at this right now in the comics API and make sure that this will this is actually the right structure. So we want to go to comics/ID and see if it gives us what we want, which is the series ID. All right, Avengers, blah, 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 blah. Give me a series ID, series ID, series ID, series ID, series. That's not what I want, though. I want a series ID. Don't make me string parse this. Oh my gosh. Wow. I look up a comic in their database, and I do not get the series ID out of it. Oh, hold on just a second. Text from my wife. Okay, check me. I know you guys are 15 seconds behind me, but please check me if you're seeing it. But I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have to parse this string to get this series ID out of here. So what this really means is, for each comic, look up the comic in the real API by ID, and then parse the series ID out of the, what is it, the series resource API string 22512. Yeah, but oh, you mean in this 2512? True. Good thinking. Yeah, it's definitely not there. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Okay, so for each comic, look up the comic in the real API by ID, and then parse the series ID out of the series resource API string. Then use that series ID to look up subscriptions in our database. Find anyone who subscribed to the series, notify them if they have not been notified yet. For each comic, look up the comic in the real API if you haven't checked it before, and then we can cache the result. Hello, whatever that, however you pronounce that thing. And then note cache episode series relationships, so we don't have to do the above lookup all the time. Actually, it doesn't really matter because we're only going to have to look it up once anyway. Well, yeah, so we should actually look up for each comic, make sure we haven't notified already. I'm not sure, but I'll take a look. What's this? This has 8. I'm not sure what this is. You're looking up comics by series. No, because this is the it's the reverse. Given a comic ID, we want to know what its series is, and this is the inverse. But that is good though. That was useful in the old way of doing things. But now you have showed me the way, showed me the light of these ones. It's the other way around now. So assuming that the correct thing to do is iterate over this modified, the list of 49 modified thing, then what we want to do is be able to get a series ID given a comic ID. And it's just a crazy thing. I mean, it makes sense because this is the public API. This is not supposed to be being consumed by developers. So they don't make it particularly easy to look up the name of the series. But thanks for looking that up. You are amazing. I owe you. I'll owe you a coffeeist one day. Okay, so this looks pretty janky, but it's viable, which ends up being, okay, so every night, pull down this data. Check its hash against the previous night's hash to make sure it hasn't changed. If it hasn't changed, just do nothing. If it has changed, trigger this event to notify. And this notify event is for each comic, first of all, make sure we haven't notified already. If we have, just skip out. If we haven't, look up that comic in the Relay API by ID, parse the series ID out of the series resource API string, then use that series ID to look up subscriptions in our database. Find anyone who's subscribed to this series and notify them if they have not been. And well, this is already. Every time we notify a comic, save an ID in the notified comics table or whatever, so we never accidentally re-notify about it. Okay, got 6 minutes. It's definitely not going to happen, but it feels good. It feels like, are we even using unlimited comics anymore? Yeah, I guess we are still. Okay, so what do we want? I feel like unlimited comics needs a form element series title. Is there something in there? As titles and values, but this value is probably a series ID, right? It's not a. I think this is just giving you a series title by a series ID. Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't tell us. There's no actual way. Like, we know the A-force exists. And it's so weird that they're showing this because it's like, here's the series title by the series ID if you know the series ID that we have not given you anywhere. Like, thanks, guys. That's so useful. Oh, geez. Series title, creators. Yeah, I mean, it's giving you information based on stuff that you don't have. So, but a good thing, though. Okay, back to here. So, here's the thing. New this week. Yeah, no, it makes sense to be able to map it if they had actually stored that information anywhere. I'm thinking of the data you want from public API, and that's fine. I mean, I feel like we're there. Like, this is what we want. And so basically, what this is going to end up being is get this and return it. And that's new this week. And that's this one. And then there's going to be a hash check in the actual command. And then we need to add probably a database, I think, of notified comics. And then we need to make sure the ability that we can look up a comic by API. So if we go to comic.php, nope, not that one. Oh, I got rid of that one. Okay. So we need a find, I guess, that's going to allow us to look it up by an ID. Yeah, definitely. This is great. And then parse the series ID out of series API string. And so we may end up creating a comic entity so that we can do things like get useful information that's not actually in it. Because right now we're just passing associative arrays around. But somehow we need the ability to get a resource or a series ID based on a comic result, even though it's not in there. And then this we already have, and this we already have. Okay, cool. So it took us 45 minutes and some brilliant detective work from D-Jekyll. Is it the Jekyll? Is that what it is? So thank you for your work there. So next time around, I might be just stepping back into this, or I might have done little snips and pieces of this while I was on call today. I'm not sure. Also, anybody who listens to the Laravel podcast, you have come back to the Blind Left alone. Yeah, thanks, Alan. I still want to go back to Vim. The problem is I've done so little coding the last year that it's just, next time I go to Vim, I need to be in a time where I'm doing a lot of coding, and I'm not in that time in my life right now. So I need to stick with what's fast, and then next time I'm doing a lot of coding, go back to Vim. Okay, so what are we doing? So next time around, I was going to say, so if anybody who listens to the DJ, oh, cool. Anybody who listens to the Laravel podcast, you'll hear that on the one that we're releasing probably today, I have told the guys that if I don't finish another app that I started building on Twitch, which is Suggestive. Oops. If I don't finish it by the next Laravel podcast, they have the freedom to embarrass me in some way. So I need to finish Suggestive in the next week and a half. So I might actually put a pause in this Marvel app and go finish Suggestive and put it live. Because if I don't put it live by the next Laravel podcast, I'm in trouble. I don't even want to think about what the embarrassing thing's going to be. So this might be next. So next time, tune in. We finish Suggestive, then we'll get back to Marvel. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks for your help. And I got to go do my day job now. So see y'all later.